Well, good afternoon, everybody. I have to make a confession before I start talking to you today. About 6 years ago, I was in a games company, a video game company called Electronic Arts. And I was a human resource executive on the team. And I was interviewing for a job at this company that my friend said, you need to go interview for this job. It's called LinkedIn. I said, no, I love the video game business because I can play video games at home and tell my wife it's market research, honey. I'm playing games. It's okay. FIFA, I love this game. So I said, you know what? I'll go, this LinkedIn, what is this company? I'm going to go see LinkedIn. And it was 2008. No one really knew what LinkedIn was or what it was about, but I'd never worked for a small company before. I'd only worked for big enterprises, Cisco Systems, Advanced Micro Devices, PMC Sierra, large enterprises. And I always had this itch. I want to try to build something. So I went into LinkedIn and I did what they call flash dating. I interviewed with about 12 people in 2 days. I met the chairman, the CEO, the head of sales, the head of marketing, the head of engineering, the head of operations. And when I got home after the second day of interviews, I said, I am so excited. I'm going to show these people in the professional networking that I'm so cool. I know how to use all these social tools. And I sent them an invitation to join my network. And I said, thank you so much for the interviews. You guys are wonderful. Please join my network. And the next day, they all accepted. And I said, well, I've got this job. I know I've got this job. They all accepted my invitation. Well, then something happened I wasn't prepared for. Do you know what happens on LinkedIn when you accept an invitation? The next day, your entire network gets a message. And for me, my boss at Electronic Arts got a message. Steve is now connected to the chairman, the CEO, the head of HR, the head of engineering, the head of operations. And as I walked into the office that day, and I was pretty happy, hey, I think I might get this job at LinkedIn. My phone rings, and it's my boss from EA. I know you're interviewing at LinkedIn. I went, oh no. If I don't get this job, I am so screwed. And that was a moment that I was recognizing that we're in a new reality that's far more transparent. And luckily for me, I got that job to run the talent organization at LinkedIn. And for the time that I was there, we grew that company from 400 people to 4,000 in just under 4 years. We grew the share price 7,000%. We built and disrupted a product for the recruiting industry that they'd never seen before. It was the ride and an adventure of a lifetime. So what I want to share with you today is I learned so much. I made so many mistakes. But I also developed what I want to share with you today, which is a concept that there is a new leadership model that's evolving that I think we all need to recognize, that I think is going to help you and help you thinking about how you grow your teams and how you think about your business. So let me start by asking a question. If you think about what drives the greatest amount of value creation in an organization, what is the biggest driver of creating value? What does that? People. That's right. People create the greatest amount of value. Talent. So here's where I got a problem. In every company I've ever been in prior to LinkedIn, the people discussion, the people topic on the agenda is the last thing we talk about. Why is that? Why is every board of directors that I've ever seen doesn't have a people expert when they're the ones driving the greatest amount of value? Why is it the last thing on the agenda, the last thing people talk about? I've worked for many companies where people say, people are the most important. All the executives, yes, people are our number one priority. But we don't have a people strategy. So that's what I want to ask you as you think about the reality that's in front of you. If people drive the greatest value creation in your organizations, are you putting disproportionate time on that? Or are you putting disproportionate time on how you're going to be profitable? How are you going to make the product? How are you going to build a nice building to house your operations? Are you worried about fundraising? This is where your value is going to be created. Is it the first thing you talk about? If it's not, why not? Talent strategy, so important. And I think it's so overlooked. Oh, and by the way, No offense to all of you who are in finance here, because we are natural-born enemies, talent people, finance people. We're always fighting. The worst systems in any company I've ever been in, the people systems. Why is that? I don't understand that. We buy the ERP, we get our Oracle solution, we buy our SAP, and then we're going to bolt on some, recruiting product that maybe it works or doesn't. But we really need to know how to measure our profit and our products. I don't understand that. Something's just wrong. And I challenge all of you, as you think about how you address your day, am I thinking about how I'm going to unlock greatness for my people? How can I get them to do the best work they've ever done? How can I make their hearts sing? How do I find their passions? Or are you thinking about, oh gosh, what time's that meeting today? Oh God, I don't want to be in a staff meeting. Are you investing the right amount of time? I don't know how much that is for you, but I bet for most of you, it could be more. So I want to also share with you a little bit of the challenge we had when we were growing LinkedIn. 2009, I'm surrounded by Google buildings. Up the freeway is a company you might have heard of called Facebook. Sexy. Up the street is Twitter. They're paying more money, 5 times more money for salary than I can hire my people. I couldn't hire anybody against them. It was incredible. They had these beautiful brands. Google has the sushi chef. We used to joke, at Google, if you have a baby, they give you a nanny, a stroller, and they build you a house for your in-laws to move in. It was crazy. How do you compete with that? Google made more money in an hour than I did in a whole year. How do I hire against that? And the end of the story is that we made people our number one strategy. And we were able, in the end, to beat the giants in recruiting the best talent in the world. So I want to talk to you about that, because there's this new reality. I learned so much, and trust me, nobody has been on this stage the last 2 days who's made more mistakes than me. I made so many mistakes. But I've worked in the fashion business, the insurance business, I've worked in the semiconductor business, I've worked in the games business. I know you're thinking fashion business. We can tell, right? Look at me, right? It's totally fashion, right? The only reason I don't have a jacket because I was sweating backstage. It's like, whoo, I'm getting so nervous. But you know what? All those businesses, it's really, for me, it's been about the people business. I'm a sports fan. I love sports, and everything I love about sports is what I love about people. How do I get the best team on the court to win the game? And we've got some really interesting things happening that I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but I want to share them with you. The first thing is that the world is so much more transparent today. I know more about you as an employer, I know more about you as a candidate than I ever did. I know where you worked, I know who you know, I know how long you worked, I know where you went to school, I know how you did in school. I know people who went to school with you, who went to parties at school with you. I know more information about you than I ever have as an employer. And the good news is, as a candidate, you know more about me than ever before. It's a transparent world. And in Silicon Valley, where the big fight was for talent, I had to innovate. In fact, my employer brand, my company brand, what it was like to work for me was more important, I think, than anything else. In Silicon Valley, if you don't like where you're working, you walk across the street and get another job just like that. I had that happen one day. We had an employee quit after one day. And I went to the employee and said, did we offend you in orientation? Why did you even come the first day just to quit? Like, what happened? And he said, I was interviewing with you, and I was interviewing with Facebook, and Facebook had this really interesting project that we were working on, and I wanted to work on that. But then they went dark. They stopped the project, and so I really liked you people at LinkedIn. But then right before I was starting, they called me and said, the project's on, so I want to go work for them. And my inner Godfather voice said, you are so dead to me right now. I spent months trying to recruit you. But this is the part of the new reality, is that people have information around what's happening in other companies. I want to go over there. They're working on something interesting. I want to go over there. They treat their people really great. Think about your employer brand. It's important. And problem, you don't control your employer brand. 15 years ago, you put an advertisement in a newspaper or an advertisement in a magazine. This is who we are. This is what we're about. We love people. Today, this is how the world finds out. Your employees are your public relations firm now. You get that? This is a marketing tool that every one of your employees does. So what we decided to do at LinkedIn was we said, well, I can't pay what Google's paying. I can't offer sexy like Facebook, but I can create an amazing experience. And we said, we're going to be the best place you ever worked in your life. We're going to help you grow, learn, develop, feel valued, make an impact, because I can control that, and that costs me nothing. It costs me nothing. But I had to. It wasn't because I woke up and said, I want to have a great employer brand. If I didn't, no one was going to work for me. It was a competitive necessity. I think the future, because of increasing transparency, employer brand is almost going to be more important than product brand. And oh, by the way, if you're in a business to consumer world, the consumers want to buy from people who treat their employees well. And the way they find that out is you give your employees great experiences, they tweet the crap out of it, and the world hears about it. So that's digital reality number one. Digital reality number two is where things start to get a little bit uncomfortable, okay? Very, very uncomfortable. People want more information. The new generations want to know, why did you decide to do that? Why did you make that decision? I had so many refugees join my company from Yahoo that were so sad because they never understood why were decisions made. And people know today. They can find out. Is your company a company that shares why critical decisions are made or they don't? That's your choice. And by the way, that doesn't cost you anything. But the increasing pressure to share information, to be transparent, is putting a lot of pressure, I think, on organizations in ways that managers haven't had to deal with before. Do you know that I was in a conference a few weeks ago, and there was a professor who was on a panel with me who said, my students today join a boss, not a company. Think about that. I heard her say, my students join a boss, not a company. Why? Because they can find out if you're good. Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about what your footprint is that the world is seeing? Are you treating your people well? Does your company promote at a faster clip? Is diversity a commitment for you? Whatever is important. Are you making a commitment and an effort to have a social profile that's going to portray you in a way that's positive, that's net positive? But this increasing transparency is really, really going to put a lot of pressure, I think, on forcing you to be more of an influencer than a controller. And that leads us to digital reality number three, which is it's all about speed. You've heard all the speakers here today. I mean, I don't think I missed a single person saying scale, speed, velocity, pace, growth, boom. So what does that mean for being a leader? Because I don't know about you, but I'm overwhelmed with information. Email didn't make my life easier. It made it crappier. I have more stuff I have to read. I have more websites. One of my friends said, hey, Steve, did you read my tweet? Did I read your tweet? I haven't talked to my mother in 2 weeks. Why do I want to read your tweet? It's like overwhelming. And so as a manager, as a leader, what does that mean? What that means is you cannot control anymore. You have information flying all over the place. But what you can do is try to channel it in ways that the best ideas surface. We invested a ton of time thinking about how do we learn and how do we listen and how do we get the best from our employees and how do we create a hierarchy, an org structure, and a communication framework that can really benefit. Surfacing the best ideas, surfacing magic. Isn't that what we all want? We want our company to crush it, to be world class. Well, if that's true, and you believe that this increasingly data-intensive, big data mine of the century that we're in, if you think it's going to just continue to grow, what does that mean for you as a leader? You have to make all the decisions? Is that real? Is that realistic? Is that fair? I don't think it is. I think leaders are going to morph more into trying to shape the flow of the ideas and influence them to get to the right people, to get the right insights and the right information. And I also think that the employees now and in the future want to be places where their ideas matter and where their ideas can be heard. And they can find out. There's a site in the States right now that's blowing up with usage, and that's called Glassdoor. And Glassdoor allows employees to talk about, do I like working here? Do I not like working here? Does the CEO know what he or she is doing? Do I like my compensation? Am I treated well? All that information's out there. How are you thinking about that and how are you shaping it? And it's moving so quickly. The last one, this is probably the biggest one that I want to land with you today, and that is this concept of iteration. Now, maybe it's because I've been in the software development world for a while, or maybe it's for another reason. But the way developers work, and this is an overgeneralization, is they do A/B testing. And at LinkedIn, this is how we would build our site. We would take a segment of our users and say, we're going to try to work the site a certain way over here, and we're going to work the site a different way over here. We're going to see which direction the users like more, and then depending on that, that's how we're going to do it. I think leadership of the future is going to require huge agility and huge increase in iteration. Let's try that. If it fails, let's fix it, let's learn, and let's do better. And that applies to everything. How we communicate, how we compensate, how we organize. We have to move quickly. There is no time. I'll give you a great example. How many of you have an executive staff meeting with your organizations? You meet and you talk about business. Okay, most of us. At LinkedIn, the entire 3.5 years that I was there, we had 15 different ways that we did that meeting. And we fought about it. Oh, let's do it 4 hours. No, let's do it 2 hours. Let's do it Monday. No, we should do it Thursday. We should do it in the morning. No, we should do it in the afternoon. Well, who should we invite? Should we invite the junior level people so they can see the sausage factory? Should we just talk about what we did this week, or should we talk about the metrics? Should it be financial? Should we talk about the market competitive intelligence? Well, how do we want to run the staff meeting? And we changed it 15 times. 15 times. It drove me crazy. At the time, I'm like, why can't someone just pick a model and just go with it? Or let's just stop meeting. But what I realized in retrospect, we were iterating. And every time, like, no, let's learn and let's do this a little bit better. And we landed, after about 2 years, on a framework that was beautiful. And it worked for us. And I thought, this is the most incredible staff meeting agenda I've ever seen. I loved it. But in retrospect, it wasn't the outcome that was as valuable as the process we used. We built a skill as a leadership team to work together to solve problems. I would challenge you that one of the most important investments you can make as a leadership team is the muscle of constructive debate. We fought over everything as a leadership team. How people get promoted, how people should get paid, how often we should communicate, how we should communicate, how many direct reports someone should have, how deep the organization should be, how shallow it should be. We fought over everything. But in doing that, we build this capability, we build this strength to be able to resolve and move quickly and iterate. And the employees, I thought, were going to freak out. I never worked at a company where we would change the compensation plan a month after we started it. And I had been working in organizations where you would meet to have a meeting around who should attend the meeting about the meeting on compensation for next year. And now we're making a decision right in the moment. Let's change it. I'll give you another example of how iteration and real-time decision-making can really influence creativity and, I think, cultural innovation. We bought this company at LinkedIn called CardMunch. And CardMunch allows you to take your mobile phone and take a picture of a business card, upload that into LinkedIn, and 5 minutes later, all the LinkedIn contact information is filled out for you that's in the business card. It was brilliant. We thought, this is really, really cool. We found out later that the technology used to do that is something called a mechanical Turk. Do you know what a mechanical Turk is? It's 200 people in India typing in with a picture that you just sent them and putting a profile together. We didn't find that out in our due diligence somehow. But anyway, it was 2 guys. They built this technology, and they created a lot of jobs for these people who are doing this data entry in Hyderabad. And so one day, Bowe, who was one of the founders, came into my office and said, Steve, you know, we do this hackathon every month, and it's a really fun process where our engineers get together and they get to create a project, and then at the end of the day, they present it to leadership. Or we usually had luminaries come visit from other companies or other figures of note, and they would judge the ideas. And Bowe said, you know, it's not working for me because after the ideas are judged and whoever wins the prize, we just go back to our day jobs. He said, how about we do this? How about the winner quits their job during the day and moves to build what they just decided to present a proposal around. I said, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, let's do it. He said, what? I said, yeah, let's just do that. He said, just like that? And so then I hit the wall next to me, pounded the wall. And the CEO, Jeff Weiner, who sits next to me, comes running in. He goes, what? I said, you remember Boway? We just bought his company. Yeah, I remember. Hey, Boway, what's going on? Boway has an idea. Boway, tell him what you want to do. Well, Jeff, I want to be able to allow the engineers who come up with these great ideas to stop what they're doing in their regular job and go build the product idea that they just presented. Jeff says, yeah, great. Is that it? And Boway's jaw drops on the ground. It's like, that's it? And then Jeff comes running back in and says, wait a second, just make sure the head of engineering is not going to freak out that people are going to leave what they're doing and we're not going to miss some big deliverable. But yeah, I love the idea. Just like that. That would never happen in the big companies that I worked at before. But you don't think Boway grew like 3 inches taller after that? You don't think he tweeted the shit out of that right after and told everyone about it and all his friends? You don't think the people who won the next hackathon and did whatever they wanted to do, their passions, we tapped into love what I do. And I think that's one of the realities, that people can see what you're doing and how you're doing it. And the quicker you can be able to tap into that, the more likely I think you are going to be able to realize something really, really special. So the future really, I think, is going to be full of challenges. But unfortunately, I got some bad news for you. This thing right here is the biggest threat that I think we all face right now. This thing. Why? Because in an organization, I worry, and I'm guilty, that my eyeballs of my employees are here, not on each other. This is the thing that I think we're missing in organizations today, is we are seduced by our technology, guilty. I bought my kids iPads for Christmas. I don't know why I did that. I came home the other night and I said, hey kids, I'm home. And this is what I saw. Hey kids, I'm home. Okay, no more iPads. Give me those iPads. People, all this intelligence, all this technology should be here for us to have a deeper personal connection. If we're talking about relationships, we're talking about talent, doing magic, why are we spending so much time communicating on this? Why aren't eyeballs more looking at each other? It reminds me of an acquisition I did at Cisco. I was at Cisco from 98 to 2004. I ran the acquisition integration team. We bought 50 companies in the 4 years that I led that team. And one time, we bought 500 engineers in Milan. And I think it's the largest number of chain smokers we'd ever acquired, ever. And I'm from California. Ew, smoking. Oh, disgusting. So we show up, we find out that these 500 engineers don't have laptops. This is 1999. Oh my gosh, these people are going to crush it when they have laptops. We're going to productivity through the roof. Guess what happened? We introduced the laptops, productivity went into the ground. And so I'm sitting with the head of engineering saying, what happened? Like, did we not train the guys on how to use the laptops? I mean, this is a huge investment. I mean, we paid $2 billion for your engineer. Like, what happened? He said, Steve, my engineers, they like to do something. I don't know if you understand. They like to talk to each other. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, what were we thinking? We drowned in our own obsession with technology. I think about this stuff. I think about this a lot. And how do I build closer connections in my organization? Do you know, as a human resource executive, how many fights I broke up because people were sending nasty emails to each other that sat next to each other? I lost count. Are you thinking about this? This is a threat. Personal connection. When I hear the word digital, I think cold, impersonal. We need another language here. When I was at LinkedIn and we would go talk to people about, hey, we've got this great software solution and it's amazing and you can do recruiting like you've never done before. The recruiters say, no, I get it. Can you help my executive not be afraid of the internet, of privacy? I was like, wow. I didn't think that was the discussion. I was here to show you how cool the product is. No, we get the product. My executive team, who, by the way, never touched a computer device in their school experience, is afraid of privacy. They're afraid if everyone gets on LinkedIn, they're all going to get jobs somewhere else. That's not going to work. But I think this is, this is the point that I want to leave you on, this threat of mobile devices. Our focus needs to be building relationships. Magic comes between human connection. If we can find a way to bridge bringing this into the world and bringing this into organizations and optimize that, I think someone's going to be very, very wealthy. But this is a challenge that no one's talking about right now. And I want you to start thinking about it. And I want your help thinking about how we can fix this, okay? So let's talk about talent strategy. Because when I say talent strategy, I'm not talking about putting together a recruiting plan of how many people we're going to hire this year, or I'm not talking about, hey, let's build a really cool cube configuration so people work together more. I'm talking about investing time to bring out the most amazing success that your employees can realize. You know, there's two professions in the world right now where we know everything about performance: professional sports and sales. Did you sell the product or didn't you sell the product? I know. Professional sports, I know. Do you play better at day? Do you play better at night? Do you pass more? Do you dribble more? Do you score more? Do you get injured more? Do your players like playing with you more? Do you head the ball a lot? Do you dribble before you pass? In the National Basketball Association right now, there are 36 cameras above the court. And they're able to determine for most players now, when they get a pass, do they go right first or do they go left? When they shoot, do they often step back or they step in? We're starting to get information around human performance now in our organizations because finally there's some good talent systems that are being developed to be able to understand things that we never could understand before. And I'll give you an example. I had a hunch when I was at LinkedIn that the people were leaving my organization were people who had their first child. They were leaving the company right after they had their first child. Like, why is a disproportionate number of people leaving LinkedIn after they have their first baby? Why is that? Is their life priorities changing? But I had a gut intuition. So then we built some pretty interesting systems. And I said, I want to go see everyone who's left. I want to know how soon they left after they had a child, and was it their first child? And then I want to go talk to these people. And what we found was there was a way that was really happening, but I could back up my gut instinct with data. And as you think about all the insights that we're going to be able to reveal around human performance inside the enterprise, we're moving towards a model. I don't think you want to put 39 cameras over your employees. Don't do that. That's creepy. They're not going to like that. Don't say, well, Steve said it was really great for the NBA, so we should. No, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is we're going to be able to find insights that are going to allow us to understand really interesting things like this. Let's say we did put a camera in the office. And I have been in places where we had security cameras when I was working in Asia. But let's say you knew the desk where all the employees like to hang out. Is that interesting information to you? Because you can do an employee survey and say, do you understand the goals? Do you understand the objectives? Do you like working here? Do you have a high level of satisfaction? Do you understand the corporate direction? Or you could ask the employees, who do you go to for advice? Now that's who I want to know. Who are you going to for advice? That's the person I don't want to lose. I want to know that more than do you understand the goals of the company? Because that person's the glue that's going to keep you here. That's having a talent strategy. That's thinking about who are the most important people that my team loves being around. And I better be darn well making sure they don't want to leave. I want them to love being here. Because I needed every advantage I could have to keep my employees happy. So one of the last insights I want to offer you, and then we're going to turn it over to some questions. So those of you who've got questions or comments, start thinking about what you'd like to do, is how do you unlock insights in this incredibly busy universe where everyone's running around like crazy people? How do you do that? Here's some things that we learned from LinkedIn that I want to share with you. Number one, we never sent an email about the company operations ever. We only did it every 2 weeks in a town hall meeting of this size, and we broadcast it all over the world, and it was the only place you could learn what was happening. And what we discovered, it wasn't by design, but we discovered we were creating a shared experience. Instead of 17 emails like, hey, introducing the new vice president of product. Oh, hey, we bought this company over here. Oh, here's the competitive report over here because Facebook just went into this whole new workspace. Instead of a barrage of emails, we said 45 minutes every 2 weeks, the CEO or me or our CFO, whoever, if the CEO was traveling, one of us would get up there and say, here's everything you need to know. Any questions? Boom. And I don't know what your own personal reality is, but I don't need to leave my house anymore for anything. I can binge watch Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Downton Abbey. I can order groceries delivered to my house. I can work from home. I don't even need to know my neighbors. Communities are changing. And you have a chance in your organization to create community, to create shared experience. Those of you who are old, like me, remember television. 30, 40 years ago, there was 3 channels, and there was only kids shows on one day, Sunday. So we all talked about it. I don't know, there's 7,000 channels, it feels like, in San Francisco right now. I don't know what people are watching, what they're thinking, but the workplace, you've got an opportunity to create a unique experience that's I think, compensating for this lack of connection that we have in our neighborhoods. Because you can work all around the clock if you want because of this thing in my pocket. You can always be on. We got to find a way to reconcile this. Otherwise, I think there's going to be a lot of crashing and burning. The other thing that we did was we had skip-level meetings. If my boss would come in with me out of the room and meet with my employees once a quarter. That's what a skip level is. We had informal lunches where the CEO would meet with about 20 people and say, what's on your mind? What's bothering you? What do you want to know? There are so many things, and I'll be sticking around after this if you want to hear more, but are you unlocking those insights? Are you thinking about, my employees have great ideas, probably more than I do. How do I get them to the surface and make them real? And here's 2 words I want you to remember. Listening strategy. Do you have a listening strategy? Have you asked your employees? Here's another one. I never did it before LinkedIn. What kind of environment do you want? What makes you do your best work? I'm not saying I can deliver it, but I want to know. What makes you do your best work? Have you asked that question? Think about it. All right, last word on culture, and I could cover 2 days on this topic of culture. What I learned in Silicon Valley at LinkedIn was my people did not want to know what the culture was. They didn't. They wanted to build the culture. They wanted to come in and have the clay. They want to put their fingerprints in it. How did I beat Google? How did I beat Facebook? Here's how I beat Facebook. Oh, candidate, do you want to go to Facebook and help children not do their homework and develop their short attention span capability and be engineer number 7,000? Or do you want to come to LinkedIn and help people find their dream jobs? I don't know. What choice would you like? Do you want to go to Google and put on a lab coat and not be sure what you're going to work on, but be engineer number 7,000? Or do you want to come over here and change lives, help people find their dream jobs, put your thumbprint in the code, be a pioneer? I don't know. What do you want to do? It's up to you. Last story, and I'm going to take questions. My first day on the job at LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, who's the only billionaire in my LinkedIn network. I love that guy. He's my best friend, Reid. So Reid sat down 2 offices down from me. He walks by my office, first day on the job. Reid, I'm Steve. I'm the new head of... I know, Steve. I interviewed you. We made you the offer. Reid, what's the most important thing that I should be thinking about as I'm helping you grow this human resources function? I was the first person ever working at LinkedIn on human resources. There are 400 already. It was a nightmare, all the problems we had. Reid walks in and says, Steve, culture. I said, I got culture, man. I've worked in fashion, insurance, wholesale, retail. I've lived in Singapore, Canada. I can deliver. What culture do you want? Because I can deliver that culture. I got it. I got this, Reid. And he kind of looks at me like, oh. He says, Steve, I want you to build the culture that you want. And I went, uh-oh. My inner voice is like, uh-oh, I'm going to get fired. How do I know? So I said, he could tell the look on my face. You know that look when someone's got like, oh no, this doesn't taste good. I had some bad tequila or something. I said, Reid's like, no, Steve, well, I was like, well, Reed, what if what I want's different from what you want? He said, well, why don't you tell me what you want? I go, oh, I know what I want. I want a place where people can have a great job and a great family. I want a place where people make a difference and feel valued. I want a place where they grow, learn, develop more than anywhere else before. You know what he said? Me too. I was like, what the heck was that? So 2 weeks later, I'm interviewing my first person as the head of HR at LinkedIn, right? And the candidate's like, okay, well, Steve, you just joined the company. You're the human resources person. Tell me about the culture here. And I said, I don't know. What kind of culture would you like? I'm not dumb, right? And you know what? I was scared at first. I was scared because I worked at places where I see the poster over there. Customer number one, teamwork, integrity, results, customer focused. I hate those posters. I hate those things because I never felt it. I never felt like I built it. Someone built it before me. Our people loved the fact that hey, I've got an idea. We're going to do a blood drive on Friday. Sound good? Yeah, sounds great. Do it. Boway, I'm going to create this new program. We can do it. Does that sound great? Yeah, do it. They loved it. I'm not saying this is going to work for you. It worked for us. If people can be part of something that they're building, not just product, but how things happen, I think it's going to resonate a lot more. So at the end, I'd like to challenge all of you to think about this whole concept, this whole notion of being personal in a digital era. That's what it's about. How do we leverage all the resources we have to build an environment that brings out magic in this crazy, data-intensive, overload environment? People need help. They need your help. And you've got a chance to build something special, to do it your way. Take advantage of that. Thank you very much. We've got a few minutes for questions or provocative thoughts before we wrap this up, and I hope I've kept you awake. Where do we go? Boo, 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 boo. Hands up. Over here? Yes.
Hi, fantastic presentation, thank you. More and more I see a lot of companies, and my case is one, where you have a lot of people distributed all over the place. In my case, we're 16 people, some in Argentina, some in Chile, some in Costa Rica, some in the US. And a lot of the magic that you were mentioning when you have these face-to-face conversations becomes a bit complicated, more when you're a startup, right? So do you have any recommendations for these type of companies that are growing now and are in different places?
Yes, so I have a very strong point of view on this subject of distributed teams and growth. And I think part of the answer depends on how old your organization is or how young it is, okay? And what kind of patterns have evolved. We believed at LinkedIn, we're 6 years old as a company when I joined, that we were going through puberty and we needed product and engineering to sit together. That's one that we didn't even want them to be San Jose and San Francisco, an hour, we didn't even want that. Same building, same energy, sharing that. So for those two, the most important creative parts of our organization, we didn't believe in dispersed work teams. We just didn't. And I've tried to make dispersed teams work, and I haven't got a magic answer for that. So what I would strive to do, inevitably I thought, well, we're going to acquire a company and we're going to be in Argentina and lots of places where there's a lot of great developer talent. But what we tried to do was find ways of having live cameras on all the time, make it as real and human and connected as possible, and then try to get people together. That's when stuff happens. We had a ski trip one time at LinkedIn where the product and engineering team went off to go ski in the mountains. They didn't invite me because you never invite the human resource guy if you want to have fun. So what we found out afterwards was that we looked at the network graph of connections and found out after the ski trip, that team was 10 times more connected than any other team in the company. So that was my business case to the CFO. We need more ski trips. Boom. So to the extent that you can build that connectivity and you have the budget to do that, which is really always the challenge, you got to try to bring people together regularly if possible. Yes, over here.
I think woman is very valuable to companies And sometimes the policies or the way the companies treat women are not really good, and we keep the curiosity about what happened to your employees who just go after the first kid, because sometimes give the people the space to improve the family values, to keep time with the families, but can work in the house and evaluate better by performance and not by the time in the office, will make the country or the companies much better. I don't know if in your company you have any policy related to women, not because there is a difference, but because families, we are finally or husband or wife or parents. So is there something there special to treat women?
I'll be honest with you. This was a big area of concern for us, for men and for women. That, and this whole concept of work-life balance, I believe it is a complete imbalance. Did we solve that problem? No. Did we try to create a softer landing for people, especially after they had their first child? Absolutely. But I think every organization has to decide what's important to them or what's not important to them, and where their commitments are. There are many, many choices, right? It's not just after you have a child, it's what are the hours you're going to expect? Is everyone looking at their watch when they see you walk out at 5 o'clock? The first week on the job at LinkedIn, I had to coach my kids' soccer team. I left at 4 o'clock. It was a test for me. Am I going to get like the look like, whoa, the new guy leaving early, like what's going on? And I don't think, unfortunately, I don't see a lot of creativity in the space that you're talking about. But I totally agree with you that there's a lot of room for improvement in trying to find that. And I think what companies are doing that I'm seeing that seem to work more is they're bringing all the life issues into the work, such as I'm going to bring a hairstylist into the office, I'm going to bring a dentist into the office, I'm going to have someone to help do your laundry in the office. But it's always a trade-off, especially when you don't have a lot of money to be able to provide for that. Here, I'll tell you one thing. There's a company that was selling itself to hire people like, you're only going to work 6 hours a day. That's it. And I said, I would love to work there, but I will never invest in that company. Because you don't win 8 hours a day, especially when you're in startup land. And that's the hard reality, I think. But every company's got to face those trade-offs. Okay, I think we got one more question, and then we got to wrap it up. There's a hand that went up really aggressively right there. Yes. In the back. Let's get her a microphone. Yes, you've got the mic.
La pregunta es en español.
All right, gonna need a translator. Sorry.
¿Cuál es el promedio de horas que se trabaja en Silicon Valley?
What is the average time that people work in Silicon Valley?
So I actually know that answer by job profession. I know it for general and administrative, I know it for software engineers, and I know it for salespeople. So for engineers, it's probably 4 years. For salespeople, it's probably 3 years. And for general administrative, it's somewhere between 3 to 4. It's moving. 10 years ago, if someone said, oh, you've worked that place, only 3 years, you worked here 3 years, you're a job hopper. Today, if you work somewhere 5 years, like, oh, you're not challenging yourself? Come on, you got to work harder. So it's a highly mobile environment. And let me tell you this, that promotes idea exchange a lot. There was a study done a few years ago in a book called Regional Divide. It said, why did California win when the East Coast had as much opportunity to win? You have MIT, you have Harvard, you have Wang, you have Digital Equipment Corporation, and on the West Coast, you have Stanford, you have California University, and you have Fairchild Semiconductor. All the assets were on the East Coast, West Coast won. Why is that? And the author concludes, the idea flow was much, much greater on the West Coast, and it continues to be. So I think movement can be a really good thing. Anyway, we're keeping people from being able to take off. I think, finish? Yeah, thank you guys very, very much. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, David.